Powers. There are so many when it comes to the world of fiction. With how many powers there are, there's many categories and levels to these powers. Categories to group the similar powers, and then levels because not all powers match up to each other. There are many groups for powers, but there are only so many levels. Basic, intermediate, advanced, master, ultimate, and absolute. And yes, there's intermediate and advanced, in the sense of being better than basic but doesn't touch the beginning of a harder difficulty in the abilities. Making this easier, basic is like 8th grade and intermediate is freshman. It's a nice start, but it's still scratching the surface when it comes to this whole thing. But now let's get started off with a master level video to kick off this new series, since you guys did technically vote for it, but without you guys fully knowing. Now this video is going to be about time, the progression of existence. It's going to be one of the largest aspects of reality, and manipulating it has to be a ridiculously strong asset. Our first ability in the master level is Temporal Looping, the manipulation of time to where it goes around to one point to loop multiple times. The actual action of being able to loop someone in time is a ridiculously strong ability, but when it comes to the specifics on it, that's where it gets pretty iffy. For example, let's take Itachi Uchiha from the Naruto series. Now, not everyone knows the specifics of Naruto, so I'm going to give you somewhat of a normalized explanation for this ability. Izanami, so with his eyes, he has the ability to trap people in their own mind to infinitely loop a moment, or creating an infinite loop of events that entraps the opponent's consciousness. Now this is technically listed under temporal looping, but it's a mental trick technically, when temporal looping would be more of a trapping them into a time stream separate from the actual time passing. But even then, using Izanami is a very huge benefit due to the only way getting out is to accept the reality which your mistakes would be in the loop. So in a way of manipulating time but not manipulating time itself, it is still pretty good. Now here's one that actually manipulates time itself. Yoshikage Kira from Jojo's Bizarre Adventure and his stand Killer Queen. I'm not going to be explaining stands in this, but basically see stands as an output for the power. People without stands cannot see stands, so that gives it another factor. Well, Killer Queen has the ability of bomb transmutation with two specific uses of it being two different bombs, but it also has a third bomb, bites the dust. Also has a third bomb, bites the dust. This is an actual temporal loop, but the problem with it is how situational it is. Basically, to sum it up, if you're trying to find out his identity, Killer Queen blows you up and then it rewinds time, about an hour. He also puts his stand into a totally different person and he isn't able to use his two bombs, so he basically turns into a regular person. But that's if you're not trying to find out his identity. So if you put Yoshikage Kira versus someone, bites the dust is completely useless. That's probably the lowest form of temporal looping when it comes to fight, so I'd say that's even below Izanami due to how situational it is. But it is a perfect example. Oh yeah, and you can also talk to Kronos from the DC universe about time looping. He knows a lot about time looping since he's kind of stuck in one. Also, I'm not putting Izanami lower than Bites the Dust. I'm just saying that Bites the Dust is an actual representation of how temporal looping should work, and Izanami is technically not temporal looping due to it not being actually a different time stream and it's just being a mental ability or some sorts. But Izanami is a ridiculously strong ability either way. I'm just saying, like, it's comparing the two, actual versus technical, but regardless, Izanami is actually a pretty good ability. Moving on into the next ability, Temporal Trapping, for the user to send their opponent to a different time, trapping them there. Do you know anyone that's been sent back in time and ended up just being stuck there? Anyone? You know, someone that's probably been spending 5 seasons being trapped in there in a different time? It's Jack. It's Samurai Jack. Aku is your best example of temporal trapping. There you go. Next power, Time Portal Creation. Self-explanatory at this point, the ability to create portals that travel through time and... Aku, you can come back since you work in this one too. You also have the main villain of Sonic Generations in this case, the Time Eater. He uses time holes to scatter everyone in the game up, and along with that, every time he goes through time, it
tears space apart, leaving the areas empty and dead, and sticking them in this weird white limbo.
Tails is 2 for 2 right now. If he cuts me off one more time, he's donezo. Well, time portal creation can be used in multiple ways. So trap someone, so you send yourself back, and it can also be used defensively. For example, you have Kagurazoa Inaba from Bleach. I'm sorry if I butchered the name. but he has the ability to use time portals and he uses them offensively, but at the same time they're a lot different than actual time portals. His portal works in the way of where it records an action and then projects said action when the portal is recreated. So if you shot a bullet into that portal, the portal would then close and then open and then shoot a bullet exactly the same way that you did it. This being a very specific type of portal, it's more like a portal to a replay button. But either way, you should get the gist of time portals, and I'm really tired of saying portals. On to the next ability, time acceleration. Now this is going to be a good one. This ability is to speed up or accelerate time for yourself or others. Now, who knows acceleration better than the Flash? Specifically talking about New 52 Flash, Barry Allen. In Flash Volume 4, number 47, Barry realizes that his powers are also connected to the flow of time, and that he can move it forward, which allows Barry to speed up time. Now, this is the best example of time acceleration being used amazingly. The second example that I have is another JoJo's Bizarre Adventure character, Enrico Pucci in his stand Made in Heaven. By having the ability to control gravity in a very specific way I plan to explain in the future, Made in Heaven accelerates time for inanimate objects, meaning he accelerates the universe to the point of where it dies and another universe is born. This doesn't directly affect humans, but there are situations where people could get easily caught in the acceleration. For example, if someone goes into a meat locker to get some meat, they would end up fully frozen after a few seconds. It's a good version of time acceleration, and it also gives Pucci an infinite in his speed stat, which basically means there's no limit to his speed in specific. But at the same time, there are kinks to this stand. For example, say that there's a poisonous gas in the air that could kill you in 5 hours. It would almost fully poison you in the span of just a few seconds. That includes Pucci because he's not an exception when it comes to this. So comparing both versions of time acceleration, Barry is a 10 and Pucci is like a 7 due to having the ability to mess himself up massively. Now on to our last two abilities. Let's get on to time stop. We have another two JoJo characters, Dio and Jotaro Kujo. They both stop time but no longer than 10 seconds on either, and I found this to be a trend that these characters don't stop time for that long, including the next characters. The only person that I know that can stop time for as long as they want is Zach from Saved by the Bell.
Time out! Man, this is horrible.
Anyways, you have other characters that have conditions or restrictions when it comes to stopping time. Sailor Pluto from the series Sailor Moon is a guardian of time. While being a guardian of time, there are things she's not allowed to do, even though I would think that, oh, if you're a guardian of time, you can honestly just mess with time as much as you want. But no, that's a no-no in the Sailor Moon franchise. If she does stop time, she dies. Then she's reborn as a new person with no powers, which is ridiculously unfortunate when it comes to having so many abilities and not being able to use them due to some rules or something like that. And then there's Goldo's version of time stop that only works if he holds his breath. If Goldo trained himself well enough, he could stop time for about a minute or two, which would be pretty interesting in a fight, but no, you got this. Now, for the last ability, I was originally going to add a lower form of one ability from a different rank, but this one in specific is just bad compared. But now, time travel, the ability to move through time. Now, we have a lot of people with the ability to do so, and we also have a lot of issues when it comes to time travel because of creating paradoxes and different timelines. Well, there's time machines, the DeLorean from Back to the Future, Superman, the Time Squad, Kronos, Doctor Doom, and a lot more. And the best example I found of an offensive use of time travel was of Kang the Conqueror from Marvel. Kang is a huge expert in time travel with many moments highlighting how respectable his power is. There's too much to go about him and to explain about him, but basically he ages slower and he has a device that lets him alter his timeline without turning it into an alternate timeline. I'd like to direct you guys to a video on Kang, but I don't have any. And I searched for Kang videos on explanations, but there wasn't any that I thought you guys would like with being informative and all. Maybe I'll go into comics on the channel more since I'm already covering video games, comics, and anime. I might as well. But all in all, time travel is pretty self-explanatory, and we had seen multiple pieces of fiction where it exists. So it's pretty easy to get the gist of it specifically. And that's going to be it for now, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I want to make a lot more of these power videos, but not to the point of where I'm just flooding with them. And I'm trying to find an even ground with content because I'm adding more stuff in later, so I'm trying to mold it all in just to fit right now. There's going to be a poll in the card on the top right corner. Next video is going to be on advanced level abilities, so I want you guys to pick one. Also, if there's any characters that come to mind with the abilities that we had mentioned, feel free to explain them in the comments. And also a side support thing, if you guys use the Amazon link in the description, it also gives me support for anything that you guys buy or whatever, and it gives a little kickback off of it without giving or adding on more to your final price. But until the next one, guys, I'll see you. So peace out and Godspeed.